Chris, what is our second main topic today?
This is from Kai Olds. John and friends, this might be controversial, but in your brief out of the theater reaction video on Uncharted, you state that the film felt like an expensive fan film, with Rob stating that the film was uninspired, and it felt like he was, quote, watching a high school play. Since John opened the door by saying fan film, how do you feel about that this new release compares to Alan Ungar's Uncharted live-action fan film from 2018 starring Nathan Fillion and available on YouTube? Thank you, John and company, for being my go-to source for movie and TV discussion.
Oh, thanks for that, Kai. All right, thanks a lot for writing that in. Okay, so yes, we went to go see Uncharted last night. I have been very excited about this movie. Quite excited about it. I think the trailers have looked terrific. I like the idea of going for a younger Nathan Drake and then, start kind of with an origins and then let him grow and develop as a character over the course of years. I love the approach. Very excited about it. Went to go see the movie. Yeah, my excitement's gone. I was not thrilled with the movie. Now, before we go into talking about Uncharted in general, let me kind of say this about particularly the Nathan Fillion fan film, which, by the way, everybody always forgets to mention one of the main reasons I think that short film was so good, and that's Stephen Lang as Sully. I love Stephen Lang. We were talking about it here in the studio before the show started. I honestly really think that we as fans look at these short films that are put out, whether it's the old Power Rangers one or this Uncharted one. I think we put on extremely deeply rose-colored glasses when we look at that, because we look at them and our mind does not evaluate them as motion pictures. We look at them as quick little YouTube videos, and as quick little YouTube videos, they're really fun. They're great. I really enjoyed watching that thing. It was not movie standards. And I especially remember thinking that a lot back to that old Power Rangers one, because really the Power Rangers one was terrible. It really was terrible. If that was if I had paid money to go to a movie theater to sit down and watch it, and that was the movie I got, I would have been pissed. I mean, it was awful, but better as a short film than I could have ever made, for sure. But it is what it is. But let's talk about Uncharted for a second. I ultimately kind of walked out of Uncharted feeling pretty disappointed. Because my expectations were high, my excitement level was high, but I walked out never once feeling like I was watching a movie. And it had some things going for it, so let's break this thing down. Let's jump into a Campea classroom for a second here and see if we can break this down into some pros and cons, shall we? All right, let's start with some pros here. Here's a pro. Tom Holland does well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, listen, Tom Holland continues to show me this dude can act. Mm-hmm. And he's got great physicality. Like when he was pulling off, like I was reading an article about how he injured himself a lot on this movie because he tried, except for the most extreme stuff, he tried to do most of his own stunts. And like with his physical background, I mean, he can do incredible things with his body, man. Like when it comes to action stuff on screen, he can do some pretty incredible things with his body. And on top of that, kid's looking yoked. The kid is looking pretty freaking jacked. They did a couple of the workout montages, by the way, completely pointless, out of nowhere. It's just like, Holland's worked hard to get this physique. Let's give him a few shots to show it off. But hey, credit where it's due, man. Respect. Game recognizes game, Tom. So he's looking great. He's looking great.
Wow, someone's going to mean that, dude. That's going to follow you around forever.
Bye-bye. It's going to go around for a long time.
Oh.
So anyway, that's a positive on it. I thought Tom Holland gives a good performance in the movie. He really does. And so I like him in it. All right. Next thing I'll say positively, another thing under the pros, I'll say this. The fight sequences were slick. I mean, the fight choreography, like everything from when the one thing we see in the trailer about, I'm going to give you a proper Scottish welcome. What? I mean, that joke never gets old to me. But when he's fighting these bigger, superior guys, it looks like a smaller, faster, more skilled guy fighting against larger, powerful, slower guys. Because when they get their hands on him, he gets ragdolled. And when they can't get their hands on him, he's got the upper hand. And everything from the fights we see on the boat to the fights we see in the museum and things like that, I thought the fight sequences came across as slick. They look good, well choreographed, had a decent level of excitement to them. I like the fight sequence, so I'm going to list that one under a pro. Another thing that I'm going to list under a pro for this film Uncharted is that the set pieces are well done. Like the main set piece, of course, the one that got me excited going into it was the 2 pirate ships flying through the air. And I'll tell you what, it felt grand to me. It felt grand when they were fighting on it. I mean, the physics had consequences. When a helicopter would bump into something, it had consequences with those people on the ships. Again, mixed with the really good action choreography, I thought the set piece was exciting and fun. I'll say easily my favorite part of the movie was that big set piece in the final act of the film with the ships flying, stuff like that. That was easily my favorite part of the film, and I thought that was well done. Another thing I'll say that was a pro, and that I think several people will probably walk out feeling were pros, was that there are some very nice direct call-outs to the games. Now, I won't give them away per se, but there are a number of scenes in the movie that are directly taken out of the games and like dropped into the movie. And there's a few other neat little things that if you know the games and the behind the scenes thing of the games are kind of a nice little wink and nods. But I never once felt, and this is a pro, I never once felt the movie going, look how Uncharted-y we are. Like I never felt that they were doing that. And that's a good thing. Because you go back to Paul Feig's Ghostbusters, which a movie I don't think is total garbage. Like I think it's a letdown, but I don't think it was total garbage. But one of my biggest frustrations with that movie was constantly, every 5 minutes, look, everybody, remember the original Ghostbusters? Oh, remember this from the original Ghostbusters? And it was just so overt and in your face that it made it difficult to watch. And I never felt like they did that here. Unfortunately, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Let's get into the cons here for the film. Con number 1. This movie feels more like a collection of scenes than a movie.
Agreed.
And here's what I mean by that. I feel like there's a number of set pieces in the movie that have some strengths. I'm not going to say they don't, but it felt like they sat down in a room and said, let's come up with some cool scenes. Okay, what about a scene where he's being chased around a museum and he's got to dive by this and grab onto these expensive chandeliers, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool, that scene. What about scenes where they're scurrying under caves under a city? Okay, cool, a scene. How about a scene where there's 2 pirate ships flying? Okay, a scene. But I never felt like they sat down first with an idea for a story. And then as they progressed through creating this narrative, finding scenes and set pieces that would fit in them, it felt like they started with the scenes and then just said, just throw it on film. It felt so disjointed. It felt disconnected. I mean, even the characters themselves, which I'll get to in a second here, just felt like, well, just add these characters and add these scenes. There you go, without ever doing the work of sitting down and narratively creating a flow to a story. And again, it just kind of felt like a collection of scenes rather than a movie. And that's what I felt like I was watching. That leads us into this one that I think is a big con to this movie. There is no chemistry between any of the characters.
What?
Okay, now don't get me wrong. Don't worry, we'll get to Ray. We'll let Ray have a say on this in a second. But it's not saying that Tom Holland did a bad job. Not at all. I've said the opposite. I don't think Mark Wahlberg did a bad job. Not at all. I'm just saying that I never once felt any legitimate chemistry between Tom Holland and the love interest, or between Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, or between Mark Wahlberg, Sully, and his foil who gets introduced in it that he's supposed to have some kind of history with. Zero chemistry. I felt no connection, no tension, no anything. And that just goes back to the last point, that it just felt like this movie felt like a collection of scenes, felt like a collection of scenes and characters randomly thrown together. And then they just asked the characters, the actors to do the best job they could with the dialogue they had. And it just kind of went nowhere. So to me, zero chemistry between any of the characters. That's a big thing. And here's the biggest thing for me. And maybe it shouldn't be the biggest thing, but it is. I've always said this, guys. If you're going to make a comedy, you can do almost everything wrong. If you make the audience laugh, you get away with it. You can make a horror. Your horror movie can be as shitty as you want it to be. If you give some great scares and give some tension to the audience through the movie, everything else will be forgiven. If you're going to have like an adventure film, particularly like a treasure hunting adventure film, in the vein of an Uncharted or in the vein of whatever other kind of movie, you can get like a National Treasure or whatever. Mm-hmm. You can get away with a lot if you have a great quest and a great map following and a great mystery solving thing, if you do that well, almost everything else will be fine. And I'm going to tell you, all these other pros and cons I have here, feeling like a collection scene, no chemistry between the characters, blah, 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 all that can be forgiven if the actual treasure hunt is good and fun. I'm here to tell you, the treasure hunting and the map following in this movie was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I'm going to give a couple of spoilers here, okay? I'm not major plot spoilers, okay? I'm not there's a lot of plot, but I'm not going to give away any major plot spoilers here. I'm going to give away a couple of events in the film that are connected to the trailers, but I just want to give you that heads up, okay? I'm giving you a bit of a warning. For example, and I joked about this in the straight out of the theater reaction, but there is a scene in this movie where Nathan and the girl love interest,
Chloe.
what was her name?
Chloe,
that's right, end up in these tunnels. They find this opening and they end up in these tunnels. And literally, Nathan is on the walkie-talkie with Sully saying, "No one has been in here in 500 years. And literally the moment the camera goes back to him, there is a Home Depot strip wall light that somebody has wired into electricity and is lit and on. And like, really? Nobody's been in here in 500 years. So there's that. But let me continue. Then the movie asks us to assume that at several key markers on this map that they have to find and go to have been built over by modern things where everything's been changed except for the one thing they need. That thing is still there. They literally end up in a fucking fast food joint. A modern day fast food joint. Thank God that amongst the Happy Whoppers and the whatever else that's all over the place, the one thing they didn't move and somehow built around is this thing on the wall that they need. And then when they're finally, you see you're in these tropic island sort of things, when they finally end up to kind of where they need to go. Guys, it's a giant open door. The final stage of their journey, they'd literally just get to a place and look at that giant cave opening where there's literally nothing in it but water and a bright glowing blue light from under the water. Nobody in 500 years ever thought, look at that giant ship-sized open cave.
In a very tourist area.
In a very, very touristy area.
It's a very nice resort nearby.
With a gorgeous resort right up the beach from it.
Like they don't take you out onto water excursions
they don't
to
let
go
anyone
cave
go
diving or
spelunking.
diving at all.
And nobody ever in 500 years ever thought, let's go in there. You know what it reminds me of? Look, I love my favorite Indiana Jones film is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It is my favorite one. But one of the most mind-bogglingly dumb things in that movie that I always shake my head at whenever I rewatch it is they finally find the tomb of the Crusaders and stuff like that. And then when something happens, their life's in danger, they need to get out. Oh, look, there's a manhole cover above us. And they literally come out of this manhole cover into a cafe in the street. It's like, really? For the last several hundred years, all anybody had to do was look down that manhole cover and there's this thing you're searching for? Anyway, but that's the thing. The treasure hunting and the adventuring, every part of it was utterly unbelievable. Was completely and utterly unbelievable. Hey, they built a nightclub around where we have to find the next marker. Woo-hoo! Good thing that's the only thing they didn't touch. It became ridiculous. And it's like, I can't get into the adventure of it when it's profoundly unbelievable. I understand suspending some disbelief here and there, but anyway, so let me recap here. The pros.
No, don't recap.
Let me recap the pros. Tom Holland does very well in the film. I can watch any movie with this kid. Even if it's a bad movie, I can watch this kid in anything. The fight sequences are slick. The set pieces are well put together. And I thought there's some nice callbacks to the game themselves. However, that is unfortunately not enough to make up, in my opinion, it's the fact that it doesn't actually feel like a movie. It feels like a random selection of scenes with a random collection of characters who have absolutely no chemistry between them. And the treasure hunting just felt unbelievable and ridiculous. And at the end of the day, did I hate this movie? I didn't hate it. There's enough pros there that I walked out not hating it, but I was definitely disappointed in it. I definitely don't like it. Yeah, I'm kind of let down. But, you know, Ray, you mentioned something coming out that's a good thing to keep in mind. When you're watching the movie, one of the big credits that comes out from, you know, like Marvel saying, dun, 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 they go all the flash. The brand new intro for PlayStation Studios. It's their first film. And so I will try to keep that in mind.
Might be their last.
No, it ain't their last.
Kidding. I'm just kidding. It made me realize I'd much rather be watching a God of War movie because they do have.
Yeah,
That's true.
I mean, which
It made me go, oh, The Last of Us. Okay.
yeah, and that's gonna
Let them work up to that. This was like their first play right here. So.
Yeah. So I mean, again, overall, I don't think it's the worst film I've seen this year. I was disappointed by it. I thought there was a lot of potential there, and I just walked out let down by it, considering how excited I was. Hey guys, we want to take a moment and thank a sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh. So guys, look, my wife Ann and I were both working professionals, so we know how tricky, difficult, and time-consuming it can be to try to eat properly and prepare your own meals at home. And that's why, like over a year ago, we started using HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. I mean, you skip the trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and probably most importantly, affordable. HelloFresh offers the flexibility you need to easily customize your orders online or right in the app. Easily change your delivery day, food preferences, and plan size, or skip a week whenever you need to. HelloFresh is 72% cheaper than a restaurant meal of the exact same quality, and you can save on average over $65 a month when you order HelloFresh instead of going grocery shopping. So guys, I'm telling you, whether you are single or have a family, you are going to love HelloFresh. So go to HelloFresh.com/Campea16 and use the promo code Campea16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's again, HelloFresh.com/Campea16 and use that promo code Campea16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Anyway, Rob, you watched the movie with us as well. What worked for you in the film? What didn't?
Well, to be fair, Tom Holland, who I was going to be ready to be critical of because he doesn't look like Nathan Drake, he's a movie star. You can watch Tom Holland. He's fun to watch. He gives it his all. He's physical. He's funny. He's got great comedic timing. Great timing. He's a movie star. He doesn't just have to be Spider-Man. He's been underserved by his material. This is a movie, though. This screenplay was terrible. For me, it's always about characters and story. This screenplay, like you said, John, none of it makes any sense. None of it is any fun. And it lets you down on every level from a storytelling standpoint, like you already explained. But here's what I would say. I think the granddaddy of the modern treasure hunting movie has to be the Indiana Jones saga. And if you go back to Raiders, in the first scene in Raiders when Indiana Jones is introduced, he is a badass. He is really, really good at what he does. But even that is not good enough for Renee Belloc to show up. And once again, we see you as there's nothing you possess which I cannot take away. And then the next thing you see of Indiana Jones is he's also a professor. He's teaching at school. So you see him as a badass and an academic. He's basically a warrior poet. And he's established as this great character of these different dichotomies. So you love the guy. Nathan Drake needed that. And the way they do it, again, like everything else, is really, really clumsy. But here's the thing that I think the movie really falls down on. Treasure hunting movies are about wonder. When you finally find the treasure, every step of the way, the wonder grows. Again, you go back to Raiders, the Well of the Souls. When Indiana Jones puts the headpiece, the Staff of Ra, and you get the location, there's the John Williams music and the sunlight and everything. And it's like every step of the way is adding to that wonder. And when you finally get to the end, the wonder should be increased. Now, I will say this, like you pointed out, the final set piece is a lot of fun. But when they finally discover where this treasure is, it's like, Here we are. I went through a door. Here's billions of dollars worth of treasure. Whatever. I mean, I never felt wonder in this movie. And the thing about the Uncharted game, when I first started playing the game, those backgrounds and the environments that you're in, every time you went deeper into the jungle and you got to a new environment, there was a sense of wonder in this game. And there's no sense of wonder in this. I mean, they went to Barcelona, which can be a wondrous city, and they took all the wonder out of it. And I never felt anything that made me feel anything in the film. And there's got to be magic in a treasure hunting movie. And I don't mean magic like God coming out of the ark.
Yes.
I don't mean God. I mean the magic of discovery. You know, whether you're going underwater and finding the lost city of Atlantis, or you're finding the Goonies galleon, or the galleon in this, or whatever, there's got to be a sense of wonder and discovery in a treasure hunting movie. And there's none of that in this film. It's wonderless.
Chris, you were, let's say, remarkably, what's the word I'm looking for? Remarkably reserved?
I was.
In this film, what did you think about it?
Also, Jonathan Landers, hi, it's really me in the chat. I expected exactly what we got. I went into this being like, this isn't an Uncharted movie, but okay. So for me, my expectations were met. The first 30 minutes of this are particularly hard to sit through. It's just really clunky. All their meet cutes really just don't pay off. And Tom Holland is doing the best he can with this script. I find Tom to be giving those moments where he's
100%.
aiming for that chemistry. He's so charming. He's so delightful, even though he's the bartender from Cocktail, he's Tom Cruise. But, he's doing what he can with this script that's just not serving him well. I really think that it doesn't pan out, and it's not fun. Like you were saying, Rob, there's just not the amount of joy I wanted in this. And if everyone at least had the can-do attitude of Tom Holland, maybe it would have worked a little better. Even, I love Mark Wahlberg. I love an exasperated Marky Mark. It works great in the other guys. But there was something here where that exasperation just felt so one note constantly. You didn't understand why these two would keep working together, why they would want to playfully banter, because it just felt like they were stuck and not in a way that really behooved either of them, where it was some kind of symbiotic relationship for them. It was a bummer. The post-credit scene, stick around for the post-credit scene. I think the post-credit scene promises a little bit more Uncharted than the film itself did.
And now I should point out here, before we go to Ray, there are people who like this film. I mean, while it does not have a good critic score right now, it does have 39%, which means almost 4 out of every 10 critics who went to go see it enjoyed it. And I've heard from some of our viewers, even a lot of the comments in our post, in our instant reaction video that we put up last night, have written and say that they enjoyed it. And we're not all Scrooges in here over, this movie. There's one of us in this room who had some fun at it, and that was Ray Ora. Ray, what worked for you here?
The smartest brain in here. No, I'm just kidding. First of all, I don't do treasure hunt movies, so this is literally my first one that I've ever watched. So I don't know if you want to take my opinion for I don't know, but Tom Holland, if he's not Nathan Drake, I don't see Uncharted at all in this. But if it didn't have Tom Holland leading it, I don't think I would have liked it as much.
Right.
So he's a very important part of it.
That says a lot about an actor's performance, actually.
Him and Mark Wahlberg, the chemistry thing, they just met each other. So I didn't expect them to be the chemistry to show on screen. In the movie, they just met each other, I mean. But their banter, I thought, was cute some of the times, when he was saying, oh, he gave him the smaller sword. He's all, here, little man. He's like, I'm only 1 inch shorter than you.
Yeah,
those things I enjoyed. I mean, look, when you play an Uncharted game, you don't really look forward to the dialogue. You want to get to the jumping parts and the action. And I thought this movie gave it to me. You know what I mean?
I mean, you were legitimately clapping at a few scenes in the movie.
I mean, that's only because, my biggest fear in the movie was the air scenes.
Right.
Because in the trailer, I was like, that's so green screen or whatever it is. That looks so. it actually looked great.
Yeah, I was impressed with how it looked.
That was true. That those aerial sequences are pretty
And
great.
you know, okay, the treasure hunting part in the beginning, I'm gonna admit I did fall asleep for like 5 minutes, but I was completely tired, and it was just like the dialogue part. I just threw all that stuff in the trash. Who cares?
Who cares?
When it got to running around the city and turning the key and finding things, I was all in. It's just a fun movie. I think kids will love it. Kids will definitely love it.
Yeah.
If you don't go in there expecting like a award-winning movie, I think everyone would enjoy it. I mean, like the action was enough for me. Is all I'm saying.
I do want to say I went into this too fully on the Nathan Fillion short film train. I love that. I think it's a great scene. I don't think I'm seeing it with rose-colored glasses, but maybe I am. But after seeing this, though, I don't think Tom Holland was miscast. I think he just wasn't given a script that allowed him to be a young Nathan Drake in the way that we all wanted him to be. I think if he got the right script,
I would
he could have
totally
done
agree
it.
with that. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, look, is it just me? I am positive that Tom Holland had major dental work done, because there, especially in a certain number of scenes, there are scenes where his cheeks, his lips are kind of like that, and you can see when he's talking. And I think they gave him a number of scenes with bubble gum to pretend he was chewing bubble gum to maybe cover or hide the fact that he had some swelling in his mouth. I mean, I
maybe
gotta
one of
go
his
back and watch it
injuries?
again.
Although this movie was filled with like 3 or 4 short mini montages. Which,
Yes, it did.
Was
Yeah,
really
yeah.
funny to me.
Oh,
I don't go ahead, Jordan.
well, I'll tell you something that I really objected to in this movie. And it goes back to my adage, never put your universe before your characters, your story. This movie asks a question in the beginning of the film that it's going to wait to movie number 2 or 3 to answer. And it has to do with something to do with Tom Holland's familial situation.
Right.
And it's
Which
like,
is right out of the games. Yeah. So I don't think that's ruining it for anybody.
yeah, absolutely. But it's like, tell me the final story. like this movie doesn't really have an ending. And then they show you 2 post-credit scenes, meaning like, see, this movie's so great, we can't wait to make the sequels. And I'm like, this kind of thinking is ruining studio filmmaking.
Well, is it any different than them putting like
Look, you got to make
what's his name, Nick Fury at the end of Iron Man?
Well, look, yes, it is, because here's the thing. When is a video game adaptation warranted a sequel? Maybe you could say Mortal Kombat or something, but make us a great film that is a self-contained entity that works. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has all of these Marvel comics and if Iron Man didn't succeed, they still told the story of Iron Man 1 entirely in that film. That extra tag is an extra thing. They ask a question in this movie, and the entire movie is all about this relationship that he's missing in his life. And they don't resolve that situation because, hey, we're going to carry this over.
Now I want to be careful. I don't want us to get into too many details here about
I'm just it's game, but it's like I felt like I really resented that they're expecting me to come back and watch another movie or 2 movies again. Like you people.
Okay, I got to put the brakes on us here because we have gone way over time and we've got to keep.
Can
moving
I ask one
it.
more thing?
Okay,
Will you guys
one more
watch
thing.
the next one? The next one.
Yes,
I say
I
yes.
will watch the
I
next
would
one.
watch it. That seems promising.
That's the main question. Would you actually go see the second one? Was it that bad where
there
you
was
wouldn't?
enough there for me that even though I am disappointed with the film, I would give a second one a chance. Yes.
I would too.
All right. Well, guys, question is for you. What do you think about Uncharted? Have you had a chance to see it yet? Maybe you haven't. Where's your expectation levels? Were you disappointed like I was? Did you enjoy it a lot like Ray did? Are you somewhere in between? Whatever you guys are feeling, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.